Many chosen ones walk through life carrying invisible wounds, deep emotional scars that took root in childhood, born from moments when they felt unloved, unseen, or even rejected by those who were supposed to care for them the most. These weren't just passing feelings. They shaped your reality. You may have looked around at other children being coddled, celebrated, praised, while you learned to swallow your emotions, make yourself small, or prove your worth in silence. You may have questioned, again and again, what you did to deserve that kind of treatment, or why your own family seemed blind to your light. But hear this now, it was never because you lacked value. In fact, it was the opposite. Your value was simply too vast, too radiant, too otherworldly to be easily understood by those still rooted in survival mode. From the very beginning, your soul carried a divine weight, a mission too sacred to be wrapped in comfort. You were never born for a life of ease. You didn't come here to blend in or chase validation. You came to shake things up, to disrupt patterns, to awaken the sleeping. Your childhood wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. Every challenge, every emotional bruise, every tear shed in silence was molding you, sharpening you, forging you into someone who could carry the weight of purpose, someone who would one day rise to lead others out of darkness. The universe didn't pamper you because it couldn't afford to. Your mission required strength, not softness, clarity, not comfort, power, not perfection. And so life, from an early age, threw you into the fire, not to destroy you, but to refine you. Your parents, whether they were aware of it or not, became instruments in that divine process. Their inability to love you the way you needed, their harshness, their emotional distance, it all played a part in building your resilience. It wasn't fair, and it wasn't easy, but it was deeply spiritual. You weren't simply being raised. You were being activated. While others were being taught how to follow the rules, you were being shown how to survive in a world that wouldn't always welcome your light. That pain you carried wasn't because you were unworthy. It was because you were set apart. Even as a child, your spirit stood out. Maybe it was your deep eyes, your quiet awareness, your tendency to feel things more deeply than others. Maybe you always knew when something was off, even if no one said it out loud. You might have sensed energies, read between the lines, picked up on the emotions people were trying to hide. There was something about you, something ancient, something sacred that others couldn't quite place. And that light? It made people uncomfortable, especially those who hadn't yet faced their own shadows. When someone hasn't confronted their own pain, your presence feels threatening. Your sensitivity exposes what they've buried. Your intuition sees what they've tried to hide. And so, instead of embracing you, they tried to shrink you. You may have been called too sensitive, too emotional, or too much. You may have been told to toughen up, to stop overthinking, to just go with the flow. But what they really meant was, I don't understand you. And that misunderstanding wasn't your burden to carry. You weren't the problem. You were simply vibrating at a frequency they couldn't hear. Your light didn't fit into their dim worldview, so they tried to dim you instead. But nothing can extinguish a flame that was lit by the divine. You didn't just enter your family to be loved. You were sent to transform it. You were born into a lineage filled with unspoken pain, silent suffering, and generational cycles that had been repeating for decades, sometimes centuries. But where others saw tradition, you saw dysfunction. Where others stayed silent, you asked questions. Where others obeyed, you challenged. That was never rebellion. That was alignment. Your soul said yes to this family, this bloodline, this mess, not to repeat the patterns, but to break them. You were the chosen one, the cycle breaker, the light bearer. And that role? It's heavy. It's isolating. It means you probably felt alone, even in a crowded room. You may have wondered why no one else could see what you saw. why no one else felt the urgency you carried in your bones. You may have questioned your own sanity, doubted your instincts, tried to numb your gifts just to fit in. But those gifts, your insight, your empathy, your ability to see beneath the surface, those are the very tools you were given to change everything. You were never meant to conform. You were meant to disrupt. There's a sacred pain that lives in the hearts of chosen ones. It's the pain of being too awake in a world that sleeps. It's the ache of seeing the truth when everyone else clings to illusion. It's the sorrow of loving people who can't love you back in the way your spirit craves. But that pain, it's not empty. It's not for nothing. It's the birthplace of your power. Because pain, when processed in honor, becomes fuel for your purpose. It unlocks your empathy. It deepens your wisdom. It cracks you open so your light can pour through the wounds. Everything you endured as a child, every cold shoulder, every harsh word, every moment of feeling like an outsider in your own home was shaping you. You weren't just surviving. You were being trained. Every time someone tried to silence your voice, your spirit got louder. Every time you were overlooked, your vision became clearer. Every time you were dismissed, you learned to trust your own inner knowing more than the world around you. That is sacred preparation. That is divine strategy. That is the universe crafting a vessel strong enough to carry out a mission that others would never even understand. So if you've ever wondered why your path has been so difficult, why your childhood was marked by loneliness, confusion, or emotional chaos, know this. It's because you were never here to live a normal life. You were here to blaze a trail, to awaken, to heal. And yes, that healing starts with you. You don't have to carry the pain forever. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who were never equipped to see it. You get to forgive, not to excuse, but to set yourself free. You get to rise, not because you have to, but because it's who you are. You are not broken. You are not damaged. You are not a mistake. You are chosen. You are divine. You are the one your lineage has been waiting for. And your journey, every heartbreaking, soul-stretching, tear-filled step has been leading you here. To this awakening, to this remembrance, to this truth. Let yourself feel it. Let it wash over you. Let it rewrite the narrative that's been playing in your head for years. You are not the black sheep. You are the golden thread. You are not the outsider. You are the path maker. You are not too sensitive. You are exquisitely attuned. And now, more than ever, the world needs what you carry. If this message has reached you at a time when your heart needed it most, it's not by accident. It's divine timing, a sacred nudge from the universe to remind you of who you really are. If something inside you is awakening, if your spirit is stirring, if you feel seen in these words, type 111 in the comments as a sign to the universe that you're ready to step fully into your calling. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning of your reclamation, your rising, your return to truth. You didn't come here to survive. You came here to shift the atmosphere. And you're not alone. Every scar, every tear, every moment of feeling like you didn't belong has led you straight into your power. Now rise. Your time has come. You didn't learn resilience through praise, recognition, or ease. You learned it in the quiet corners of your life, where no one clapped for your survival, where no one noticed the battles you were fighting behind your eyes. You became strong not because life was gentle with you, but because it wasn't. It was silence that taught you to listen to your inner voice. It was solitude that helped you hear the whisper of spirit. And it was survival that carved endurance into your bones. While others were wrapped in comfort, you were being stretched, sometimes painfully, beyond what felt fair or reasonable. But in that stretching, something extraordinary was forming within you. It was in those seasons of invisible struggle that your gifts began to awaken. Your intuition sharpened. Your empathy deepened. Your vision became spiritual. Your strength, quiet, sacred, and anchored, started to rise. These weren't random hardships. They weren't some cosmic mistake. They were initiations, sacred awakenings disguised as challenges. While comfort might have lulled you into a sleepy existence, it was pain that jolted you awake. It was pain that called you into your power. Pain that became the teacher no one asked for, but every chosen soul eventually meets. And yes, your parents, those meant to guide and protect, were often too lost in their own darkness to be your light. It's tempting to blame them, to point to their failures and declare them the origin of your wounds. But wisdom, the deeper kind, teaches something more difficult and more freeing: compassion. Many chosen ones come through the wombs of broken people, parents carrying their own generational pain, shame, and trauma. They didn't always know how to nurture you because they had never been nurtured themselves. They didn't know how to love you not because you were unlovable, but because they were still learning, painfully and imperfectly, how to love themselves. Their absence wasn't a reflection of your worth. Their emotional distance, their outbursts, their silence, it wasn't a mirror of your value. It was a symptom of their inner storms. And yet, here's the divine mystery. Even in their brokenness, they were playing their part in your awakening. Their inability to meet your needs pushed you toward the spirit. Their emotional inaccessibility forced you to go inward, to seek a connection beyond flesh and blood. And in that sacred, inner temple, you found something more enduring than human affection. You found source. You found the voice that doesn't abandon, the presence that doesn't leave. And even though it hurt, it helped. Even though it broke you, it built you. You were being spiritually prepared for a path that most people never walk. A path that, by nature, is narrow and often lonely. Those long seasons of isolation weren't accidents. They were assignments. Before you could guide others, you had to learn to walk alone. Before you could lead others out of the dark, you had to navigate your own shadow. The early disconnection you felt, from friends, from family, from the world, was not some cruel twist of fate. It was foreshadowing. It was training. You had to become comfortable in the quiet. You had to learn to draw strength from divine energy when human support was nowhere to be found. The emotional distance you felt growing up wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You were being stripped of everything that could distract you, everything that might tether you too tightly to the world's noise. Because when your time came to rise, to walk fully in your purpose, you couldn't afford to be codependent. You had to know how to stand. You had to know how to hold your center. And so the universe began clearing the space early, removing voices, removing validation, removing anything that might keep you from tuning into the only frequency that mattered: divine alignment. And in that solitude, you began to hear the voice that speaks in silence. The one that lives in the spaces between breaths. The one that reminded you of your sacred identity. You weren't meant to be a follower. Your soul didn't come here to blend in or ride the wave of popular opinion. You came here to lead. And true leadership doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from the crucible. From the moments when everything fell apart and still, somehow, you kept going. From the times you stood up with shaking knees and a breaking heart and chose truth over comfort. You were being forged in fire, not because you were cursed, but because you were called. Life placed weight on your shoulders not to crush you, but to strengthen you. While others were being told what to do, you were learning to listen to your inner compass. While some needed affirmation, you were being trained to hear the still small voice that lives within. That voice was spirit, and it was shaping you, not into someone who merely survives, but someone who shifts atmospheres, someone who carries light. The resistance you faced, the opposition, the sense of not quite fitting in, it wasn't rejection, It was redirection. It was spirit saying, "You're not here to walk that path. I've carved one just for you." And though it was hard to be different, hard to be misunderstood, you were being initiated. The pain was not for nothing. The confusion had a purpose. Every heartbreak was a lesson in divine alignment. Every disappointment a lesson in discernment. You were learning how to move in silence, how to hear the voice no one else could hear, how to follow a path that only made sense in your spirit. And that's leadership. And one day, you'll look back and realize your story was never just about you. Every scar you carry holds a sacred message. One day, someone will sit in your presence and feel seen, not because you fixed them, but because you've walked their pain. You'll be the quiet voice that says, "I get it." You'll be the steady presence that says, "You're not alone." Because your story, the one laced with struggle, rejection, loneliness, and survival, is medicine. Your journey is a lifeline. And someone, somewhere, is waiting for the exact testimony only you can give. Your pain wasn't a detour. It was the blueprint. The loneliness that nearly crushed you, the rejection that silenced your voice, the nights you cried out to a God you weren't even sure was listening, those weren't wasted moments. They were sacred. They were crafting the soul you carry now, the depth you move with, the compassion you extend, the wisdom you live by. That brokenness became a bridge, and because you crossed it, others will too. You are the lighthouse for those still lost in the storm. And so here's the truth. You were never abandoned. You were being aligned. You were never rejected. You were being rerouted. Every tear was part of a divine recalibration. Every delay, every heartbreak, every silence, it was all spirit setting the stage. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. You're not here to play small. You're not here to seek applause or live in quiet despair. You are here to awaken, to break cycles, to shift generations, to carry divine light into the very spaces where darkness thought it would reign forever. And yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's lonely at times. But it's also holy. It's also sacred. And it's why you've made it this far. So if something in your soul lit up as you read this, don't brush it off. This is your confirmation. This is the divine nudge your spirit's been waiting for. A reminder that none of your pain was wasted, that all of it had purpose, and that the future ahead of you holds more light than your past ever held shadow. You were never just surviving. You were becoming. You were never just hurting. You were being honed. This is your awakening, your reminder, your sacred charge. You are chosen, and the world needs exactly what you carry. Stay grounded, stay aligned, stay bold in your light, because only you can bring what you've been called to bring.